Obviously, the Rangers have had a rough few seasons. How much different is your excitement level for tomorrow and this year based upon what they did and what they spent in the offseason?
Yeah, significantly different. And you can feel it in the clubhouse as well. And there's always spring optimism, right? We kind of get fooled by that sometimes. Spring training, everybody feels like they have a chance. But you could really get a feel for it, not just among the players who seem really happy with the culture and the group that they brought in, but you pick up from the coaches as well. You know, the guys that have been here for a while, this will be my 6th year. This seems like, to me, the year that there's probably legitimate reasons for the most excitement. The lineup is completely different. Outside of Nathaniel Lowe, tomorrow night you're going to see 8 new hitters in that opening day lineup compared to what you saw opening day a year ago. So it's not just Corey Seager, Marcus Semien, but it's those other pieces that they brought in as well. And what they're doing, guys like Brad Miller and Mitch Garver and certainly Cole Calhoun. But what they're doing from a hitting standpoint and bringing in new hitting coaches and kind of having a little bit of a new system in the way that they do things yielded some pretty good results in spring training. They believe it'll make a major difference come regular season starting tomorrow.
What have you heard and seen from the 2 new stars?
I mean, they're obviously great players with great track records. They're pretty quiet. You know, they're very professional, I guess you could say. But watching them over the years and already knowing what kind of players they are, the Rangers did a great job. I mean, you are locked in up the middle for at least 7 years with Marcus Semien on a 7-year deal and then 3 more years of Corey Seager. These guys are superstars. I think they know that they're superstars, but they don't carry themselves with any arrogance. From that standpoint, it's going to be a really nice fit. And they've done it. You know, they've gotten it done. What Marcus Semien has done 2 of these last 3 years compared to where he was when his career started. I mean, he stumbled in the beginning of his career. He was leading the league in errors. He wasn't hitting particularly well, and now all of a sudden, these last couple of seasons, he has been a top 3 MVP candidate, something we'll talk about today, no doubt throughout the entire season. He sets a record last year, 45 home runs as a second baseman, most home runs certainly he has ever hit. He has learned how to hit the high fastball, and we'll kind of demonstrate some of that stuff today, but he had a real issue with it. He told me he figured it out last year, and boy, did it pay some big dividends, and all the data back it up. And that's important in this day and age because we see so many high fastballs.
CJ Nitkowski joining us here at 105 through the Fan. Is this the best middle infield in the game right now?
That's a good question. They got to be pretty close. I haven't really thought about that as much, like looking around and saying, okay, who has the best? There's some pretty good combinations. I think what Boston is doing with Xander Bogaerts and Trevor Story certainly would be pretty good, but they're right there. I mean, this is kind of one of those fun conversations where you certainly could go out and debate. But I think the fact that you've taken a former big league shortstop, just like the Red Sox did with Trevor Story, and put him over at second base. Now, he's already done it for a year, so he's familiar with the position, although Marcus Semien did tell us he's still learning that position as well. But I would say absolutely it's up there with some of the best in the game.
We've seen the Angels have, big off seasons. They have 2 great superstars and not really able to put it together. What would be different about this team that would allow? Because having going and jumping 20 games in the standings would be just unheard of, really amazing. But what's different about this group?
I would say that if you're comparing kind of what the Angels' issues have been over the previous season, yes, they have superstars at the top. The back half of their lineup is not that strong. If you look at it on paper, I would say the Rangers have an advantage there. The other issue that the Angels have had, they have had a horrific time trying to put a rotation together. With getting any kind of consistency. They haven't spent in that rotation. I don't think they have nearly the young pitchers that the Rangers have, the ones that we'll see at the big league level like Taylor Hearn, Dane Dunning, Spencer Howard, and then the ones that are on their way, guys that are behind them right now. Owen White was a really good story, A.J. Alexy, Glenn Otto. There are some good young pitchers, and of course Jack Leiter eventually coming to the big leagues as well. So I think that's probably the difference from the Angels formula over these past few years, having superstars at the top of the lineup but probably not running deep enough, and they've had a hard time staying healthy too.
How do you view the current starting rotation for the Rangers?
So you obviously got some good arms. Sean Gray's here to stay. You lock him into a long-term deal. Martin Perez is back on a 1-year deal. It's kind of nice to have an old Ranger back, although he's not that old, at just 31. I don't know if he's going to be here for the long term, but he's certainly a guy that can give you the innings right now. I really liked what I saw from Dane Dunning last season. For a guy that has a pretty good two-seam fastball, a sinker, a lot of time we look at those kind of guys as ground ball pitchers, but he knows how to get strikeouts too. And I think we got a good taste of what he could be, and now this is kind of one of those years where you're maybe looking for a step forward. I'd say that same exact thing about Taylor Hearn. Taylor Hearn got 11 starts last year. His power arm, we saw 98 from him out of the bullpen. He backs it off a little bit, tries to pitch in contact a little bit more. He's very comfortable in the rotation. That's another guy you want to see take a step forward. So, and Spencer Howard will be in that rotation. Brock Burke will probably get an opportunity at some point as well. He made the club as a reliever, but he's probably getting multiple innings, and they're really excited about what they saw from him in spring training. So you do have a couple of arms that are looking to take that next step. It's turned into a pretty big competition. The Rangers know that they are going to be contenders, and they're opening up a window. These pitchers will all battle, and some of them will do it at the big league level to figure out who gets to stay, who gets to be part of the rotation when it really is time to take it to that next level.
Rangers analyst CJ Nitkowski on the Diamond Factory hotline, joining us from Toronto on Shan RJ. What do you think, CJ, is a fair ceiling for this year's team?
As far as win total, or just kind of what
division standing, or win total?
Yeah, it's funny because I got asked this question last night as well within our own television group, just having that conversation. You know, it's hard to say. The Astros, unfortunately, are still really good, and they're going to be a problem in the division. The Mariners have taken a step forward, although everyone says, well, they won 90 games, they got a little bit better. Do we automatically assume they're going to win 93? Not necessarily, but they are a good team. The Oakland A's are taking a step back. The A's look like an automatic fifth-place team in the division. I think everything would have to go absolutely right, and about 4 or 5 guys would have to have career years that you weren't expecting to win the division. But I think the idea of somewhere between 2 and 4, I think 4 would be a disappointment. Unless all of a sudden you have the Angels and the Mariners just crushing it, which I don't see happening necessarily. So I'd say probably somewhere in that second, third place, knocking on that door is likely what the goal should be. I mean, it would be incredible to have the kind of turnaround and win the division, but they're not that far away from it. So I'd say that's probably from a place standpoint where they could be low 80s, mid 80s on win totals. I think would be considered a successful season. I mean, you never know what's going to happen with injuries and all those other kinds of things, but there are a lot of reasons to be optimistic. You just never know. I feel like we've seen over the years some of these teams, they'll bring in players. I think about the Chicago Cubs a few years ago as an example. They bring in John Lester, and everyone believes they're still not ready to win yet. And John Lester says, I didn't come here not to win, and somehow made that team, they ended up going to the wild card that year. And nobody had them as a postseason team. And so you have a handful of veterans that have come in that are only used to winning and only used to setting high expectations. It's contagious. When you get around that, it is absolutely contagious in a clubhouse. So I'll never count this team out this year until they tell us that they've been eliminated. But I think they're knocking on the door, and then the expectations take another step going forward next year.
I know they're not going to bring him up this year, but what have you seen from Jack Leiter in spring?
Yeah, power arm obviously comes from a great bloodline. I played with his dad with the Mets briefly. It's so funny. They're like complete opposites. Like Al Leiter is super high intense. He's a great guy, but he's super high intense. Even when you're talking with him, like in between starts, he's got a ton of intensity to him. Jack is a little bit more laid back, a little quiet. He's got the power arm. He's got a really strong lower half. I love that the Rangers decided to start him at Double-A. He didn't pitch last year after the draft because of the big college season. They thought it'd be smart to take it easy on him. They'll put him in Double-A right away. I actually went to Double-A right out of college, and I think if you're a college pitcher who gets drafted high and you're relatively polished, you don't have to go through the whole A-ball stuff. Like you're pretty close to ready to go. So I love that they gave him that challenge, and I think he'll meet it pretty easily. And then once he beats that AAA one, then hopefully, realistically, maybe we see him next year. I know they'll be careful with the huge investment, but he's a competitor, carries himself really well. He's going to fit in perfectly, and I'm excited the way that the Rangers are treating his player development so far.
What about PitchCom?
This is pretty interesting, right? Like, I was kind of like Mitch Garver. We had Mitch Garver on the broadcast the other day, and he's like, I'm kind of an old and salty catcher, and I thought the whole idea was stupid. And for people that don't know, it's a catcher that's wearing a little device with 9 buttons on it. You kind of put this little silicone thing in your hat as a pitcher, and he can push these buttons, and you can hear pitch. Like, it'll say fastball in, whatever it may be, and it gives you all these options, and you're going to see the pitchers that use it you won't see the catcher putting down signs. It has been really well received. Even Mitch Garver, who said he was down on it, and others seem to like this thing. So we're going to see a lot of it. I'm down on it only from my standpoint, because one of the things I like to do on the broadcast is bring viewers in when you see those catcher signs going down, and it's a big moment, right? And Mitch Garver goes fastball and he shakes him off, and we talk about it. John Gray wants to go slider away here, and you build up the anticipation, and you see how that'll ultimately play out. We will lose that, and I'm a little sad about that, but it makes a lot of sense. I think things are moving along quicker with this PitchCom, and because all the guys seem to like it, I have a feeling that we'll see a good amount of them use it this year, and probably will be the way to do things going forward.
Will it get hacked?
Apparently not. MLB on one of our calls that we've had told us no, that is not a concern. 3 other players, position players, can get it. It'll likely be your infielders that have it. I'm petitioning for one in the booth, but I'm probably going to lose that one because it would be nice. It makes us look smart, right? If we could sit there and tell you what pitch is coming while you're guessing along. So now we really, truly will be guessing along. But no, it's. I don't think it can be hacked. They don't seem too worried about it. They don't seem too worried if the volume's high and you're standing next to a runner. You're holding a runner on, say, Nathaniel at first. If they wanted him to have it, could the runner hear it, and then could he really relay the sign in time? I don't think it'll be an issue, but it doesn't mean somebody's not going to try.